bright and beautiful and hot Oxford, Mississippi, right outside the Manning Center. I'm Ben Garrett. He's Brad Logan. It's Talk with Champions. That QR code on your screen right above my head right here, that's for the Ole Miss Spirit. Kickoff is less than 2 weeks away, September 6th. Your Ole Miss Rebels in Nashville against Louisville. We are, nonstop at the Ole Miss Spirit in the lead up to that kickoff. We want to see you there at the Ole Miss Spirit. You can join us now for the first time for 75% off. That extended deadline is all because of y'all and the response that y'all provided for the Ole Miss Spirit. So if you've been reticent, man, join up. Come on and hang out. I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but right now it's 75% off, $249 a month, $30 for the year. Come on, it's the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com. And today, Brad, we're right outside, like I said, the Manning Center following Pete Golding's press conference. He had a lot of interesting things to say. First and foremost, what were your biggest takeaways? And we're going to hear from Pete Golding in just a second. Also, Kyle Christensen, the CEO of Thropic. Remember that Rebel game we played back in May? Now they got one for LSU, like the hottest ticket in town. So you can enter to play that. You'll hear from Kyle in a little bit as well. And also
Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered.
Phillips.
Yeah, we'll hear from Chris in just a little bit.
Chris is awesome.
Well, there's a lot going on right now with the whole Daquan Wright fiasco.
Chris is awesome.
So we'll hear from Chris at the bottom of the hour. I think the biggest takeaway for me is I wanted to know about the linebacker room, and that's what I asked about. Mm-hmm. The name he did mention was Tony Mitchell. But the name he did mention, and we'll hear in just a little bit, is Jacoby Hobson. And that's the one I wanted to ask about. And I think at the end of the day, he talked a little bit about Raymond Cotton, Tajay Butler. Nobody special, but he did talk about freshman Ant Davis. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot of positives coming out of preseason camp about Ant Davis. But the linebacker room, obviously, with some depth there behind Farrelly and Keaton Thomas, you don't want any type of injuries, but then you got to rotate. But here's what stood out to me. Is when I asked about it, he was very specific. Like he talked about the offensive line, there's going to be opportunity to roll people in and out. It's maybe some different positions, like a Sunter and Perkins. So we might see some names that might line up as an outside linebacker that maybe not normally would be there. So I was impressed by that. He talked about Samari Reed, talking about getting the player. I forget, how did he put it? He got player of the practice or something.
He was the most improved player from last year to this year.
Yeah, and so
far.
He talked about him, and he's like, and of course, Horatio. And we know him as Horatio Fields. Again, keeps coming. We asked Caleb Odom. Who did we see in here that talked about Horatio?
We actually saw Horatio in the Manning Center.
That's right. We did. We talked to him, and he was talking about how he was enjoying it
and how he's taking Caleb Cunningham.
Yeah. That was it. So we actually did talk to him,
and it was cool because it was completely no one asked about Caleb Cunningham. Like I was asking about Samari and reserve wide receivers.
Yeah,
and he voluntarily did bring up Caleb Cunningham, which will be news. News that most everyone will be excited to hear. Music to the ears of Ole Miss fans, specifically knowing that that's a 5-star player, the number 1 player in Mississippi, coming out 2 years ago from Choctaw County. Didn't really do anything as a true freshman. Been banged up. Now he's fully healthy, and he said, "quote He's been what we thought he would be." Well, when they signed him, they thought he was the future at the position. So hopefully that continues because. But the most notable thing in that answer to me was when he was talking about because I was like, who could emerge from wide receiver 4, 5, 6, 7? He considers the tight ends as a part of that, right? So immediately for him, the way Ole Miss Pete Golding is operating is it's going Deuce Alexander, Jonte Cook, Horatio Fields, then Caleb Odom.
Yeah.
Luke Haas. Caleb Odom, I think, has got the most breakout potential of anyone. Yeah.
Brady Prieskorn.
Mentioned Michael Smith.
Yeah.
But he did volunteer Caleb Cunningham and did say that Samari's created a role for himself offensively, but he was a former all-state safety in high school. Like he, if nothing else, is going to be a core special teamer. One of those gunners on bunts. I mean, they really, really like Samari Reed and what he's done. He didn't say a ton about the Daquan Wright stuff.
No, I mean, Michael Katz, the Daily Journal, opened it up, and Pete kind of laughed. Everybody did because we knew that was the question.
It had to be.
He just basically said, I'm not going to give you my personal beliefs on the situation, but he did kind of talk about it.
He did, though. Kind of did.
He kind of did. I mean,
can't help himself. He has like a good idea.
One thing that it was important, I think, that he pointed out that so many players inside that Manning Center have bled, have sweat. Right to our right is Vaught Hemingway Stadium. He talked about how they practiced a lot there. And I think it means a lot to him that people put in the spring, put in the fall practice. And I think it means a lot to him so somebody just doesn't walk in off the street. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't accept anybody. I'm just saying it feels like to me.
He said they're evaluating all options. I know they're looking at offensive linemen. They have to. They got some injuries, especially at tackle, and they don't have depth there anyway. So he didn't dismiss that they're looking at folks. Is Daquan right? He was never coming back here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, he's going to LSU.
But it was but really, if you look at it, Daquan is a natural fit. Back in Charlie Weiss, back with Lane Kiffin. If it works out, he's an incredible tight end, and he's an immediate impact player. The question you have to ask, if you do something like that, what's it do to the locker room? And, I don't know those answers.
But that's what Pete brought up.
It felt like that's kind of what he brought up. And I think, too, he was also asked, there was an interview Walker Jones had. It was on a podcast. And I have not listened to all of it, but I've heard snippets of it after that. But apparently there was some
I remember back at the time, like months ago.
Bugs.
We posted on the Ole Miss Spirit message board, and people said we were crazy, Homer crazy. The FBI. I don't know if it was the FBI, and that's what Pete says. Like, did we hire the FBI?
He said no, but there was somebody on the team.
But he did not.
He didn't say they didn't do it.
He did admit, though, that there was somebody on the team whose dad has a connection or works for that just made sure that there weren't any bugs. Which I want to defend two people.
This is going to go crazy online.
One, Walker. I defend them for sweeping bugs. Like, why wouldn't you? This is insane. There are no guardrails. There are no guardrails. So why wouldn't you try that? Any competitive advantage. I'm defending Lane and LSU specifically with all this Daquan Wright stuff. Yeah. Of course you take every opportunity. And Lane was answering the question about the same time that Pete was. It didn't say anything, in terms of, I engineered this, even though we, further reporting would lead most all of us to believe that LSU, this did emerge from Baton Rouge where the court filed, the TRO was filed and granted. More than that, the immediate agreement and all that kind of stuff. Lane calling Todd Monken, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, saying, maybe I should have answered now. This was obviously, but Lane didn't answer in that way. He's simply saying, there's an avenue to procure talent, and everybody's taking advantage of it. We're doing so too. And he's not wrong. The LSU's banking on the SEC later this week, who's supposed to be meeting, not being able to do anything about Daquan transferring to a SEC rival school outside of their transfer windows. The SEC is about to change completely this week because they have to make a decision on this. Will they allow it? What is enforceable? And will they then see LSU in court? You think a member institution?
You think we'll hear from Greg Sankey?
They have no choice, and that's the thing. Lane did this during COVID. In 2020, challenging when he got Tavius Robinson and Dean Leonard, he's always kind of pushed the limits of that. And you don't celebrate that for 5 years at Ole Miss and then deride it now at LSU. Having said that, I think even Lane would admit he's doing his job, and I don't blame him one bit. I would try to do it too. As far as Ole Miss, you're not getting Daquan back. I'd be shocked with Xavier Harris at 380 coming back, really providing anything for them anyway. Wyatt Williams, I think, could absolutely come back. I was told it's either the NFL or Ole Miss for Wyatt Williams. And here's the thing. Wyatt doesn't need to be able to come back. Zay doesn't need to be able to come back. Daquan doesn't all of these dudes. And problem is the NCAA created the problem. They created the specific 2022 class problem. And these kids, in filing these suits in through our judicial system, is not a roundabout way. No, it's exposing what we've all known to be true. The rules and regulations were selectively enforced. They were arbitrary. They never meant anything anyway. Now it's being laid bare. The problem is now you're less than 2 weeks away from kicking off your season. This weekend they're kicking off the season. For Ole Miss, it's 2 weeks. And the adults in the rooms don't have any answers. So will Daquan play for LSU? Yeah. I fully expect him to. Wyatt Williams, if he doesn't make the Cardinals, he'll be an Ole Miss Rebel. Ole Miss, like Pete said, they've got injuries, specifically on the offensive line. Daquan, I think it's supercharged, but that's done and done with. That's not even a possibility.
Speaking of injuries, he talked about the secondary. There's nothing, season ending, but he did talk. There's
most
depth
banged
there.
Up. He said we've been most banged up there.
Yeah, there is depth in the secondary, so that is good news there. The biggest takeaway, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill for this. It felt like there was some quiet confidence from Pete today. And the reason I say that he's never going to come in and just, nail down anything, but he felt very laid back. And it felt to me like he likes the team. And kind of what it felt like to me.
He does. He does like the team, but like he is very matter of fact. It's not personal. It's just business, and he treats it that way. Their jobs are to have this team prepared for Louisville and to win on Saturdays. That's why I'll defend Lane for getting Daquan on campus or back to LSU from the NFL, just like I will defend. Pick your thing, right? You know, how we've fervently defended Pete with all the tampering stuff. It's less like everybody's tampering. Just like Lane said today, everybody's doing this.
Yeah.
It's the peer pressure defense. But also, no one's doing anything about it. There are no safety monitors. There are no hall monitors. There are no principals and assistant principals. That's all being challenged this week. And Greg Sankey and the SEC will have to specifically decide if they do have any power to be. And what they would do then is they would say, well, he can't do that. And then they would sue at LSU, but then that's going to get drug out past the season and stuff. Like, there's no telling unless they get the it's all a legal mess of the NCAA's own creation, and now they're begging for help to fix it. It's not coming. So for Pete Golding and this Ole Miss program, they're at a hard cap 105. They would add offensive linemen if they could. They don't need a 380-pound defensive tackle. They're deep there, the defensive line. They recruited and signed players knowing like that Xavier was going to be gone. You know what I mean? So, like, they don't have a spot for him. Why would you take opportunity off the table for Baby Maddox when you don't have to? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same principle with their tight ends like Caleb Odom and Luke Haas, and the changes. You wouldn't have gone and maybe signed one or both of Michael Smith and Brady Preschool, right? Like all of that kind of stuff. And unlike the nihilistic view, which is, oh, we're just going to take talent however we can get it, Pete's also saying, well, I'm thinking the human element. All of the guys have been practicing for months. Yeah. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. You know what I mean? I am with all of the fact that they have to do it and they're having to answer for this, and it's August, whatever it is pathetic. You know, it's pathetic, and it's completely a creation of the NCAA and all those other feckless idiots, and college administrators too. I mean, but like the biggest thing is it felt like football.
Yeah, it did.
Like we talked about receivers, we talked about line, we talked about this. But what else did Pete Golding say? Hear from him in full right now on Talk of Champions.
Hey, Pete. Just want to get this one out of the way.
No idea what this one's going to be.
Yeah. 3 former Ole Miss players have been ruled eligible to return to college after being at camp with NFL teams, and one of them is reportedly transferring within the SEC. Maybe not even with this specific situation. I'm not sure what you can say on it, but do you have any statement on the state of things in college football right now?
I think obviously it's unique times. I mean, I think every year has been a little something different, you know, kind of since COVID. There's been something new that you've had to manage and go through, and it's always very fluid. Feels like it changes every day with a different court case and all those type of things. But I think this one's unique based on the timing of things, kind of like we talked about in the last press conference is, all right, here were the guidelines in which you were responsible for managing a roster. And there's numbers and there's specific things that obviously you got to do to put yourself in position to win. So I think from the very beginning, some of these guys that have become available to the outside looking in don't always fit a need, all right, where we're at. And that's kind of what I said last week. It was like, from an injury component, there are things that you've had some banged up spots to where obviously if this is what we're going to do and this is what everybody's doing, you know, within the framework of college football, then there are certain spots that obviously we would have interest in too. And there are certain spots to where we filled with really good players that have gone through a spring and gone through a summer and done everything the right way, that obviously there's not a need there. I'm not going to get into my feelings of what I think it does for the sport. I don't think we got enough, you know, time right now to do all that type of stuff. But I think all of us obviously have a responsibility to our current roster, and then there's a responsibility in the chair that you're in also to, you know, produce a really good football team. I'm strictly basing it on, okay, what's in the room right now, right? Our numbers are where they're supposed to be. We got really good players that we went and recruited that have invested and bought into what we're asking them to do. And then there's some spots that we got banged up, and that room wasn't what it is in January. You know, we got some guys that with some season-ending injuries at certain spots that if it becomes available to give us more opportunity and more depth, and that's what we're all doing, then we'll have to look into that.
I'll get another one out of the way. I think over the weekend, Walker kind of mentioned a story that y'all had the FBI come through and sweep the Manning room for bugs after the coaching deal. Did that happen?
Well, say that again?
There's a story over the weekend that Walker Jones told about having the FBI come in through the Manning Center and sweep the room for bugs after Lane left? Just was that?
I think any bowl game playoff system, obviously you're going to up security. I'm not sure that there was a hiring process of here we go with the FBI. I do think we probably have a current player whose dad just so happens to work for the FBI that lives in town, that from that standpoint, there was no measure to go, oh my gosh, here, come in from that standpoint. But no, obviously, anytime you get in that playoff system and you had guys from this building go to other places, you want to make sure it's secure for your players. Nothing from our standpoint, but the video access and everything else and all those things that you're doing regardless where you're at. I mean, that's no different when, in the semis and the quarters, regardless where you're at for the hotels that you're staying in. Like, you've got to up the security. People are in and out, and you're sweeping trash cans. I mean, that's been done for the history of ball. So, no, there was no hiring process of, hey, let's get the FBI in here. Holy cow, let's start looking around. No, it wasn't anything like that.
Pete, I got the question you want. After all the summer, after all this is over, how does it feel to finally be in a game week?
No, it feels awesome. I mean, that's what we kind of talked about. Like, July was kind of that for me when we first spoke, to kind of get back into the ball piece of it. And then it was good to kind of get through camp, so to say. And today's the first day of class and getting our guys ready for that routine and what that looks like for those guys. But it's nice to dive into, all right, here's an opponent outside of, our offense and all those type of things, to kind of get in a routine for me of kind of what that's going to look like, day in and day out and all that. So it's nice to finally, this is kind of a hybrid week for us. It's not going to be all on game week mode. We're going to have a mock game this weekend and simulate some things and all that. But we still have a lot of guys that we got to get in the can-do category. So we're still going to do some good on good and some competition things to create opportunity for some of those guys. And then the guys that are playing winning football, it's the consistency of the execution right now that's the focus this week, and the attention to details and all that. But it's been awesome to be able to get in there and be like, all right, here's a red zone plan, here's a third down plan and all that, and look at somebody else. No, I've enjoyed it.
Two scrimmages in. What did you need to see, I guess, heading into this mock game this weekend?
To me, it's been really flashy, and I think that's when, the two team meetings that we've done after those scrimmages, there's enough things that you can see on tape. You're like, man, that's it. And that's winning football, and you can win a lot of football games doing that. But then same unit, same dudes, same calls, that's not it, And so the ups and downs right now, really in all three phases, is really what we're focusing on this week. And I think these guys got to get to the point, they got to understand everybody doesn't get them my bad. And that's kind of what it's been up to this point. And so the consistency in that is something that we really got to focus on. And I mentioned this to you guys before. I mean, more games are lost in this league than won. And that's when you go through these drives out of these two scrimmages. Okay, the drive was either extended based on a non-aggressive penalty or a bust, or the drive was stopped, right, based on a non-aggressive penalty or a bust. And so that's not winning football. And so I think that's the key to this week. How do we clean those things up? And then from a situational standpoint, we got to get a little smarter in certain situations and do a better job from a coaching staff and letting them understand, like, look, we can't take a negative yardage play here. We're in field goal range, all those certain things that come up in games that you're simulating in practice that we got to make sure that we get right. So I think that's kind of this hybrid week for us this week, and then going into a real game week to really see what pieces, for sure are where and why.
Since we last talked to you and a couple scrimmages in, obviously, just what's the progress report on right tackle? Do you know what you guys are doing there yet, or is that still an open competition?
It's still an open competition. I think, Tommy has really, really flashed. I thought this second scrimmage, he played really, really well for probably about 30 to 35 snaps. I think that the tempo in which we play, right, and the amount of snaps right now that position is going to have to play, I think we got to continue to get him in shape. Obviously, getting Kern back for progressive weeks in a row has helped, has flashed, has done some good things. Another guy that falls in that consistency category right now. So, you're still looking, obviously from that standpoint, how can we rotate a couple of guys for worst case scenarios? And then what do one do better than the other, right, from a package standpoint? But, we got this week to kind of decide that, and then we kind of make that decision next week. But I would say right now, definitely Tommy has, probably flashed and been the most consistent up to this point.
With it being the first day of classes, how does academic kind of relay into the room a little bit? What is their academics, or sorry, let me rephrase. What is their academics mean to this team, and how does it help them even gain playing time over someone who's maybe struggling academically?
Yeah, I mean, I think that starts at the top, and what emphasis do you put on it? So, from us, from January moving forward, we put everything under one umbrella, and that doesn't matter whether it's football, strength and conditioning, nutrition, or academics. Like, that's your responsibility. So when we put it on a schedule, whether you're late, you miss, you don't do what you're supposed to, like, the accountability phase of that's all exactly the same. And a lot of young guys don't understand that. But that goes back to that self-discipline piece that we talked about. They don't want to go to class, but they have to go to class. So here's something that I know I'm supposed to do, but I don't want to do. Can I make myself do it? Like, it's our responsibility to make sure we're making them do that. And so, a lot of that to our guys have been, how do you go over there with the right energy, attitude, and body language to be a good dude? Right? And whether you really want to be in English or not, you need to act like you want to be in English. And the professor needs to know your name, right? And show up dressed the right way and do all those type of things. So the presentation of it and being a good dude, regardless whether that's class, whether that's study hall, or whether that's in the CAF, like, that's the expectation here. And so, we had another freshman meeting this morning to make sure that our young guys do understand, all right, it's the first day, you got one shot at a first impression. Here's the expectation, you got rules and values of an organization that you're responsible for upholding, but that's a significant piece until being eligible doesn't matter. All right, it still matters right now, and you've got to be eligible in order to play. So there's still a student-athlete component. I know we don't feel that way sometimes, but there is, and this is the start of it, and making sure we're getting started on the right foot. So we brought them in because we're an AM team this morning, and made sure we had a team meeting, got everybody scheduled together, and then kept the freshmen to make sure we start off on the right foot. But
life is made up of moments. We care about those moments as much as you do. We are Modern Woodmen, a fraternal financial services organization. Member-owned, not stockholder-run. Since 1883, we've supported families, strengthened communities, and helped people reach their financial goals. From protection to saving to retirement planning, let us help you plan for those special moments in your life. We are Modern Woodmen of America.
Start my weekend.
Own your day on the Network for Connected Living. There's more to see. Right now, get 4 free 5G phones and 4 lines for only $35 a month with a 5-year price lock. C-Spire. Customer inspired.
Homes and businesses from the whims of nature. You need more than just quality materials. You require Riverland Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, Riverland Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what Riverland Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
Hey, Rebels, your truck is here. Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Oxford presents the all-new Ram Rebel. It's Ram, the Rebel way. Send an unmistakable signal. Rebel, 24/7. Ram Rebel, from your friend in the car business. Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Oxford.
Come by, let's be friends. I'm Warrior Philip Hearn. Raising my family here in Mississippi, I've tried to teach my kids to help others. I learned that from my parents. And as a Mississippi lawyer, I want to help you too. If you're hurt in a traffic accident, 18-wheeler wreck, or have insurance trouble, call 601-720-3541. That's my cell. You call, I'll answer. Let's get started. Make your first call to the Hearn Law Firm today.
This is Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett at Spirit Ben on Twitter. The Ole Miss Spirit is where you'll find me all day, every day. OleMissSpirit.com, an affiliate of On3. Sign up today for 75% off. It's our fall camp special. Ole Miss is deep off into fall camp. Only a couple of weeks left until Ole Miss kicks off the 2026 season against Louisville in Nashville on September 6th. Joining me now, Thropic CEO Kyle Christensen, because another prize, I want to say prize, more or less, a more prize revealing game has arrived by Thropic because of the success, I'm assuming, from the one back in May, June, July, and this one's even better. But before we get into all of it, Kyle, what's up, man? How you doing? I like the hat. You got some for the class to share with the class?
I've been red-pilled, man. I'm an Ole Miss fan. It just bring it on. Let's go. I stepped foot in the Grove and I was sold. So you'll probably see me back there again this season.
I love it. You're a Colorado native, man. You've been a former D2 catcher. You've done a lot of things, worked with Netflix, Facebook, all over. And you're telling me that through it all, you've come out the other end with the red and blue hat, with the Ole Miss coded fandom kind of coming out a little bit, right?
Well, the last time I was in Oxford, Double Decker was happening too. Yep. And I thought this was a typical weekend. I was told it's not quite like that, but come football season, it will again. So, yeah, man, it's such a beautiful campus, such great people. Obviously, the team is rocking and rolling. So we're excited to be back.
Well, first off, the Rebel Rivalry Challenge, when we talked to you last back in end of spring, going into the summer, how did that play out? Trinidad and Kiwan were both involved in this. It's an interactive fundraising game built around those guys. How did that go, and how did that lead into what is coming now that you're here to kind of talk about?
Yeah, it went better than expected. I think we got some – I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but thousands of Ole Miss fans showed up, right? $10,000+ in just that short window that we were pushing it. I think it was a little less than 2 weeks. And yeah, some lucky fan, which I know the Ole Miss athletic department's going to announce here in the next week or so, won that for the home opener against Charlotte. And so, yeah, we're back again. This time, I think we got a pretty cool prize. But by the way, we're doing this all season. So once this is done here in a couple of weeks, you'll have a chance to play another set of games. We might even do something a little bit different this time come October for your chance to win tickets to the Missouri game. And then last but not least, the Egg Bowl. So we'll be doing this stuff all season. Hopefully be back here a couple times talking about, how much we've raised for the athletic department via the fans, and then some pretty killer prizes, man. I don't know about you, but what I'll call the game of the year from an outsider looking in, and I heard a couple people call it World War III. So, I think Oxford's going to be rocking and rolling, hopefully be 2-0 by then. And then, it's game on. So, yeah, the prize is just absolutely amazing. Not only tickets to maybe one of the most special games in Oxford, but Walk of Champions and sideline passes, pretty dang cool. And all you got to do is play. So.
Yeah, first and foremost, what it is. For those that don't know, maybe you're just learning about this on this edition of Talk of Champions, and Kyle stopping by and being so kind as to break it down for you. The Rebel Rivalry Challenge for the Charlotte opener, the reward for that, or the prizes for that, winner got, and that'll be announced, like you said, in a week, sideline passes, Walk of Champions access, lodging at the graduate, signed jerseys from Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacey, signed memorabilia from first-year Ole Miss head coach Pete Golding, and now you are launching another one off of that success for the LSU weekend, the game of all games, Lane's return to Oxford, Mississippi. Tickets are already insane, so for this, it was already a great prize, the first one. This one, it's like y'all are supercharging it even more. And I will say, back in May when Kyle was on, I said, you know what? If this one's so successful, you might be able to do one for that LSU weekend, and here you are.
Here we are, man. Yeah, listen, the game is really fun, and I'm going to send you the game in the chat, so maybe we can pull it up and play. But what's really important to understand is this is a money can't buy experience, right? So whether you're a big-time donor or you're just a bum like me, you can come in, you can actually play for free and still get entries in there. But every dollar that you contribute to the Ole Miss athletic department goes to the, paying and helping with, things across it. But you can also, once we do and play this game, you can send your referral link to your friends. And so if you don't have any money, you play for free, but you send it over to, Moneybags Ben over there, and he donates $1,000. I get an additional 1,000 entries into the game itself. So it doesn't matter what end of the spectrum you're on. As long as you're an Ole Miss fan, you can get in there and play for a chance to win.
I don't know if this will help your prize pack, but I'll throw in this if somebody needs it. Little ho action.
Let's go. I love that.
So for everyone to see, there it is. There's your friendly neighborhood Ginger Shrek. There's Lane. Many people gave me things late last fall. That is one of them. So we could throw that in. I don't know if it'll help or hurt. All right. So for someone that wants to play, I've drawn it up here. Let's play it a little bit. Do we just go right here and play draft your lineup?
It's as easy as that, man. I don't know if you're on the Ole Miss email list, but they sent out an email this morning, but you just hit play and you start rocking and rolling. Now, the whole goal here is to go undefeated. So you're going to have to pick the highest rated players. You only get one free redeal. So you're going to take Elijah Moore. All right, good pick. All right. Dexter or Patrick Willis. All right. I would take your free redeal right here, just because you want to have the highest rated players. There's some.
Oh, there he is. I was waiting for him.
There we go. There we go.
Got Trini. I'm of course taking Patrick Willis. That's my guy. And Trey Harris.
All right, 11-3. Not bad. You're probably making it to the college football playoffs now, but here's where the real key is, right? So you went 11-3. You got 11 entries into the game if you help and donate to the program, right? So pick your level. Smallest contribution to the program is $35, but you can put in $1 million if you want. We don't have to go through it right now, but let's say hey, don't have the money right now, or hey, can't afford it, or whatever the case might be. You can go down to the bottom, hit I don't want to give to Ole Miss, and you'll be entered into the game itself, and you'll be able to rock and roll. But as you can see, just with one email or two emails now and a couple social posts, we've raised over $5,000. Got 3,000 Ole Miss fans already in it. It's pretty cool to see the turnout here. So.
Absolutely. I would encourage you not want to give to Ole Miss. I think all of us can give up 35, but I get 11 earned entries just for my, going 11-3 with my drafted lineup. Correct.
Well, so sorry. That's a good clarification. You only get one free entry if you don't donate. But again, this is a random drawing at the end, so you're still in the game. But if you do donate at any sort of capacity, you get those 11 plus every dollar that you donate as an entry. So if you selected 100, you would get 111 entries.
From Ole Miss's point of view, in terms of the collaboration with the university itself, athletics department, getting this off the ground, what has the response been in terms of how Ole Miss administratively has really responded to it and how it's helped the program? Have you seen a tangible impact in terms of like what it did the first time and now what, to bring about it again? It seems like everybody is like, dude, this is something not stumbled upon, but dead gum. We've landed on something here, because this is as good of a prize package as you could possibly win. And in this day and age, when it's hard to really do anything for anybody and like honestly surprise or make it worth your while, this is as close as it gets. And now that you've done it for LSU, holy cow, Kyle, just don't give it to yourself, come on.
I'll try not to. Here's what I'll say. Listen, our goal at the end of the day is to have a meaningful impact and bring in, future players and all that back to Ole Miss so you guys can keep the winning ways going. But on top of that, we've heard it from the fans, a resounding, like, we want more. I did a little survey after this at the end, and I was like, what are the top 3 things you want? They want more games, more prizes, and more chances to do cool stuff with the team. So here we are. I think at the end of the day, like I said, our whole goal, and we hope everybody shows up and contributes if they can to the program itself. But on top of it, 3,000 people in just a short amount of time coming into play just shows how much people just like to do fun stuff like this for a chance to win. And, if they don't win, why not? It doesn't really matter as long as we get our next quarterback, our next running back, our next old lineman, or whatever it is.
So quite literally, it's a streamline for those that are trying to understand this here. You're playing a game to win awesome prizes. Yes, you can give more money to get more chances. You don't have to. You get a free play. You'll be entered in. You could be that person without giving a dime, just playing. But the more money you give, the more chances you get to win these prizes and to keep playing and all those kind of things. But more than that, that money is going directly to buying the next Trinidad, to buying the next Kewan Lacey. in a crazy environment. We're seeing it change quite literally by the day, Kyle, this week alone, with players that signed NFL contracts potentially returning to college. Never has it been more wild. And you wonder, well, where the heck can I put my money and make an impact? This is a really streamlined and easy way, Kyle. It's a fun way, too. I don't want to over-promote it in terms of like, oh, Ben, you're just doing this to promote. No, I've played it. I see it, and I'm living in this culture every day. And, man, what a cool concept. And like you said, it goes directly to – like everyone wants to go like, I just want to give to the team. Here it is. The easiest way to possibly do it potentially.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we're trying to talk to the casual fan, right? I think Ole Miss is doing a hell of a job talking to the boosters and the sponsors and everybody sort of what you'll call downstream. But, for your casual fan who wants to play, maybe give $50 or whatever it is, this is your opportunity right here. And by the way, you don't even have to play. If you look right below the play, draft your lineup, you can continue and just donate to the program too. So, yeah, like I said, for a Joe Blow like me who love to help a team, but, maybe doesn't have thousands of dollars laying around, this is the opportunity. And then, like I said, we got to play one game, but there's actually 4 games that you can play and get your free entries as well. So as soon as you finish draft your lineup, we got a game called Map It, where you just got to pick certain locations around the country around college football, true or false. And then the last one is a nice little immaculate grid. I believe the themes there are Heisman Trophy winner, #1 overall pick, and Super Bowl MVP across quarterback, running back, and wide receiver, tight end. So
if you ever need, suggestions for really deep cut questions here, hit up your friend Ben. All right. Because I was riding around for church camp back in June, and I got all these kids in there that like, they don't love this stuff like we did. You know what I mean? So I'm like, hey, there's only been 3 Ole Miss Rebels enshrined in Canton for the NFL or the Professional Football Hall of Fame. Can you name one? And they couldn't even name Patrick Willis, for goodness sake. Of course, all of them said Eli Manning, but if you go to the Immaculate Grid and actually try this out, you could learn things and beat your friends and beat everyone else and maybe get more and more entries and opportunities to win great prizes like the one for LSU. Is like, how did you stumble upon this? How did you come up with this? Like, where was this born from?
So you touched a little bit on my background at Netflix and Facebook, but I actually was the chief marketing officer for a sports betting platform called PointsBet before we sold that to Fanatics. And that's really where I learned about gaming. And so once we sold that business, I was trying to think, well, hey, I love to play games and I love to do things, but also like, how could we contribute and do some games for good? And this is sort of the spawn that came out of it. We like to have them hyper casual. So whether you're waiting for your coffee, waiting for your Uber, whatever it is, you can come in, play that game, boom, in and out. And then again, I like to really emphasize it. It is free to play, but we of course want you to help Ole Miss. And then, you can share your link out to all your friends. So maybe you can't support it, but if your friends can, and, they donate $50 to the program, you get an additional 50 entries on top of their 50 entries. So it's all kind of worked out the way that we love to see it. And, Ole Miss has been such a great partner for us. So we're excited to get it going. And, there's about a little over 2 weeks left for people to come in and enter. So here we are, early days, but yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you. It's crazy to think that football is around the corner, and especially this game in particular. It's the hottest ticket in town. Don't look at Ticketmaster, wherever you get your tickets, StubHub, whatever. Don't look at them if you haven't gotten tickets yet. It'll just depress you, okay? Let me just tell you, your first try, why not do it with Thropic? Why not do it with the Ole Miss Fan Challenge to win LSU tickets and much, much more? Maybe you'll be on the field and get to come face-to-face with Lane and say whatever you want to say. I would argue to not say things like this because it'll follow you around for months and months and months on end. But if you do, and like I said, Kyle, I will throw this in for whoever wants it. Whoever wants it, it's yours. It doesn't like maybe that'll lose you if you. I don't want to do that. All right. So did Ole Miss is this where you first tested this, or have you done it at other schools? And what has the response been like just around the country as you get all of this kind of all these games going?
Yeah, so we've worked with Texas A&M, Colorado, Syracuse, Ole Miss, and then this upcoming season working with A&M again, Kentucky, Arkansas, Cal, Ohio State, potentially Penn State. Some of these other big programs are looking to do. And, listen, if anything, it is a great way to engage the fans. But, I think we have the chance to have some material impact and help raise a decent amount that can help bring players in, because this is, to your point, crazy news that some guy has 2 sacks in the NFL preseason and potentially might be coming back to college football. It's going to be the Wild West for a little bit. So we're just trying to help as much as we can. And Ole Miss has been such a great partner, prizes like this, access to the players, Heisman hopefuls and all of this sort of stuff. It's really shown that they're thinking in different ways that I think will ultimately, put them towards the top of the nation. And especially this year, man, it's going to be excited. The other day I forget what network it was on, but it was just a replay of some of the college football playoff games. And I was just watching it just as dialed in as I will be. The season actually starts here in 5 days or so, something like that, for that Ireland game. So it's go time, man.
That's the thing. If Ole Miss has already won over Kyle Christensen wearing the hat as he comes back on Talk of Champions, I don't want to see like when you go on Texas A&M shows wearing an A&M hat. Now, at this point, we're claiming you. And if that's the case, it's just the way it is coming to town. I expect to see you for the LSU weekend. I want to see you here in town if you can make it. All right.
That's the goal. Listen, I can't enter this contest, so I'm going to have to find my own ticket. But, again, like we'll figure it out. And it's going to be a wild day in Oxford. So I got to be there.
What an absolute great way to get involved, Ole Miss fan. If you're limited in cash, it's hard out there for all of us, man. So if you're short on cash or you want to give and you've got limited, whatever, if you just want to have fun, if you just want to take your chance, however you come about it, try this out. The Rebel rivalry back in May was a blast. It was an incredible hit, both from our Talk of Champions people, the Ole Miss Spirit people, and I have no doubt. Back then I said it, and I'll say it now that they've brought it to reality. This one right here could go even crazier. So get involved now. Only a couple weeks' time. Kyle's laid it out for you. The prize package, again, insane. Is it the same as the Rebel rivalry? I think we touched on it. Like, it's still Walk of Champions access, tickets, the whole shebang.
Sideline passes. So, pregame, you're going to be there and sort of see the tension build. So yeah, man, it's going to be a special day. I can't even imagine doing Walk of Champions on that type of day as a fan. It's giving me goosebumps right now. So
yeah. So get involved with it. That's Thropic, the Ole Miss Fan Challenge, play.thropicgames.com. That's play.thropicgames.com. Ole Miss Fan Challenge, win those LSU tickets, and we'll be talking more and more about it every single day leading up to the deadline here on Talk of Champions. Kyle, you're the man. Thank you for doing this, dude. Keep that hat rocking everywhere you go, and let's catch up again after LSU.
Sounds good, brother. See ya.
Start my weekend.
Own your day on the network for connected living. There's more to see. Right now, get 4 free 5G phones and 4 lines for only $35 a month with a 5-year price lock. C-Spire. Customer inspired.
And welcome into the Talk of Champions. Brad Logan alongside Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Does a fantastic job. Chris, before we go any further, tell us about some of the other shows you have on the SEC Unfiltered network.
Yeah, Brad, I appreciate you having me on, and always a pleasure to chat with you. Our football show's Chewing Clock, and it's all under the SEC Unfiltered masthead, by the way, which you can find us on socials, YouTube, podcast, literally everywhere you get content. But a couple of months ago, we made the decision to organize the content in a way to help people get directly to what they're most looking for, because, of course, we do cover football, baseball, basketball, and a little bit extra, everything in between. But our football show's Chewing Clock, Mondays and Wednesdays, 10 a.m. Central. We're also going to go live on Saturday nights late during the season, recapping the day that was. Our baseball and basketball shows are seasonal, but our basketball show, of course, just around the corner, called The Layup Line. That show will be live on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and our baseball show Mondays and Thursdays, called Glue Guys. And I also have my own show, The Chris Phillips Show, which I talk about a bunch of different stuff, the off-field stuff, the on-campus stuff, the behind the scenes, whatever it might be. So, but Chewing Clock, that's the football show. And again, it's all under that SEC Unfiltered masthead, Brad, where We're essentially live every single day, every social media platform you can think of, and of course, YouTube and podcast. Same places they get y'all's great work as well.
Yeah, you and I have talked a lot about it, and I really applaud you. You kind of took a step out. I know you were pretty much entrenched. I think it was Spurs Up show with South Carolina, and then you kind of branch out, and kind of the world is your oyster at that point. And so you've done some terrific work covering the entire SEC. A lot of the spotlight right now is on NFL players coming back to college, and it really has a lot to do with what happened yesterday as we record on Monday morning. Daquan Wright coming back to LSU, the former Ole Miss player. What did you think when you saw it, and what are your overall thoughts about this?
Well, Brad, and I'm glad we've had some time since this initially dropped, because I, like many, was the reaction was strong, to say the very least, in the standpoint of I'm someone that loves the sport of college football, cares about the sport of college football. And so, as you can imagine, this was met with an immediate negative reaction. Even having 16 or so hours, or however long it's been since the news has dropped at the time of our conversation, it still makes my stomach turn. It's still sickening, if you will. It's unfortunately, Brad, not surprising, because I feel like we've had a lot of, oh, that's the first time I've ever seen this in the sport of college football. And it just keeps happening, it seems like, on a day in, day out basis. Thankfully, kickoff's around the corner. We can focus on the stuff that matters, which is on the field. But, there's multiple parties at fault here. There's two sides of this, Brad, from the standpoint of, can I really blame the players and the coaches when it's the people in charge, a.k.a. the NCAA, that dropped the ball initially to even open the door to allow this to happen? On the flip side, what has happened to common sense, Brad? I mean, it doesn't take much common sense to realize that, yeah, guys who played in the professional ranks, we've seen this with basketball most recently, right, with the Bediako thing over at Alabama, and thankfully that got corrected quickly. But it doesn't take a lot of common sense to know that guys that have stepped on a professional field, that have signed a professional contract, coming back and thus playing college football is a bad idea. So I don't wish any ill will to Daquan Wright or anything, but it's and this has happened previously, by the way. We saw this at Texas, an offensive lineman that was working out in Brown's training camp that is back on the Texas roster. It compromises the integrity of the game. I think that's putting it nicely. And it's certainly opened the floodgates. We thought it was the Wild Wild West before, Brad, and it's only getting worse. So I think what Greg Sankey, I know you and I had this conversation, what he says is going to be really interesting. And I think it's going to be, a lot of people are going to judge Greg Sankey based off how he handles this situation. But it's bad, Brad, when even the people who are benefiting from it, LSU fans, the rational ones at least, not the ones you see on Twitter, but the rational ones, it even makes them sick to their stomach. And they know this isn't good for the sport. It isn't good for the sport of college football. And so certainly I would like this to go away. We'll see, though. We'll see. It's truly the inmates running the asylum at this point.
Right now, as we record 2 weeks before the season starts, do you think he plays for LSU?
I'm going to say yes. Yeah, I think he suits up for LSU against Clemson. I don't believe in the powers that be to put their foot down and make a stand. I feel like we've reached a point in college sports, Brad, not just college football, where if you don't like something, you can sue your way to seeing the field. And I mean, that's not a direct shot or a shot at anyone. It is just the nature of the beast. And again, blame the NCAA, blame those in charge for not putting together a unified front and being able to stop things like this. We've learned more billable hours. Those are the real winners of the state of college football right now, right? All the people that work off billable hours, because, every twist and every turn can be resolved with some sort of lawsuit or some sort of court action, if you will. So I'm going to say yes right now, because I don't have a lot of faith of those in charge to put their foot down and stop it. But, it's like LSU's goal is to be the least likable football team in college football. And I guess that fits the head coach in Lane Kiffin, who I think wants to play the ultimate villain.
I've gone on the record by saying this, and I'd love your thoughts. I believe that the decision, or the lack of a decision, from the SEC and Commissioner Greg Sankey is going to kind of pave the way for his legacy as conference commissioner. I don't know if you feel that strongly, but I truly believe this is a paramount moment in the SEC for what's to come. I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, I think we've never had a more important commissioner from the standpoint of what issues he's dealing with and the opportunity for the impact that he has to make. And we've seen Greg Sankey bend the knee on multiple occasions. The 9-game conference schedule. I mean, listen to the coaches. They didn't want it. The pushback from them that has come. And I think it was Greg Sankey bending the knee to the Big Ten saying, okay, we'll go to a 9-game conference schedule as long as you factor in strength of schedule. We have this expanded playoff. Well, that's not happening, right? You got played. The removal of Cupcake Saturday, in some crazy twist of a world where it's like, well, our schedule's not tough enough. We got to take away one of the quote unquote layup games. You got played. Look at the Big Ten scheduling. Look at the ACC scheduling. You got played, man. So yeah, I would agree with you. And I think handling these issues, again, it's never been, I'm sure Greg Sankey could have never imagined the issues that he would face as the SEC commissioner, but he is facing them, Brad. And I agree with you. I mean, the way that he handles situations like this, again, thankfully, what happened on the basketball court with the Alabama thing, it felt like common sense finally won out where we said, hey, yeah, a guy that played in the NBA probably, or the G League or whatever, probably shouldn't be suiting up in a college game, although he did get to play in a few of them. Finally, he was deemed ineligible. Yeah, I think they have to act. They have to act quickly, and I would agree with you. This is Greg Sankey's opportunity to gain some trust from SEC fans and those that support the conference. His decision one way or another, or his statement one way or another, I agree with you, is going to completely dictate his approval rating and thus dictate his legacy.
I know the NCAA is kind of a joke at this point to many people. Feckless is the word that I hear a lot. And I know these two things are not the same. They're completely different with the player for Tennessee that had the $425 plane ticket that he paid back and he's suspended for 2 games. And then we have NFL players that are coming back that have to pay money back in order to play in college. That's part of their contract. Where is the NCAA, Chris, and why are they doing things like they did for the player at Tennessee, and where are they right now in the world of college football?
Yeah, Brad, pitch a 10 up over the circus because it's like a game of whose line is it anyway. Remember that game where the games are made up and the points don't matter? That's what the NCAA feels like from the standpoint of they really pick and choose their spots. The Arion Carter thing, and the craziest part is the kid paid the money back. He paid the $427 back after he realized, okay, I'm actually going to come back to Tennessee, and he's still getting a 2-game suspension. Meanwhile, like you said, we have a guy who, as recently as Saturday, was catching passes in pregame for the Cleveland Browns and is now going to play for LSU. And, it's funny, not to divert from your original question, Brad, but it's funny because, and I have no issue with LSU people. I got plenty of LSU friends and colleagues, and I like LSU folks, but they think people are mad because it involves LSU. And I'm not saying it doesn't make them an easy target because of Lane and whatever, and they do play the villain. They lean into playing the heel. But this would be universally hated by everyone, no matter where this kid went. It doesn't matter that it's LSU. It really doesn't, right? Let's make that very clear. This isn't an LSU hatred thing. This is a hatred of what college sports is becoming. When you start to compromise the integrity of the game and Saturdays start to become slightly unrecognizable, right? That's when you start to lose people. So, Brad, I wish I had an answer for you of where the NCAA is. If I'm Tennessee, I just play Arion Carter. What are they going to do? I mean, what power do they have over it? You know what I mean? At this point, the rules really don't matter. I don't know why you'd adhere to anything the NCAA says. I would just play him, to be honest with you. I don't know what Tennessee's going to do here, but it's that really, Brad, I'm glad you bring it up as a great microcosm of where we are in college sports, to where Daquan Wright, welcome back. Arion Carter, you got to sit for 2 games because you got on a flight that you paid back. I mean, make it make sense, man.
Let's talk about the play on the field, and one team that everybody's kind of looking at, an opponent of Ole Miss. is the Texas Longhorns. Arch Manning, the quarterback, Cam Coleman, the incredible receiver. It feels like this is kind of a make or break year for Steve Sarkisian, the team's head coach. Where are you at on Texas? And where are you at on all the stuff that's kind of coming out that, boy, it's been a rough preseason camp for the Longhorns?
Yeah, and I think you got to take camp stuff with a grain of salt, Brad, admittedly, although it has been really, really interesting. I mean, here's the deal. It's not like it's just coming from A&M burners or Oklahoma burners or beat guys or whatever. I mean, this is, you know, I know folks, and I have friends, and I know you do as well, that cover Texas, that have alluded to that Arch Manning has struggled in fall camp, which is not – I mean, listen, again, there's one of two ways to look at it. Is it Will Muschamp and this elite defense, or – is there something to this? I tend to take it, Brad, with a grain of salt. If they go out there week one against Texas State and they look lackluster, okay, then we can really have a conversation. But I'm not going to overreact to fall camp reports that, who knows, maybe Sark telling them to be a little bit down, to temper expectation. I mean, you just never know the angles these guys are coming from. But, yeah, you mentioned make or break. I mean, you know, a good friend of mine, CJ Vogel, who works for On Texas Football. I mean, Brad, he put it to me as, I mean, this team is national title or bust. Yeah, when you're national title or bust, make or break's a really good way to put it, right? I think Steve Sarkisian, you have run out of excuses when you look at what the folks around this program invested and the guys they added. You mentioned Cam Coleman, but Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers, some impact guys on the offensive line. It's got to all come together offensively. The return of Arch Manning, of course. And then defensively, you bring in Will Muschamp and you return a guy like Colin Simmons and so many other talented pieces on the defensive side. I know the schedule's difficult, Brad. It's arguably the most difficult schedule in college football. You got that big showdown against Ohio State in week number 2. But, yeah, anything less than the playoff, Brad, certainly I think we're talking about Steve Sarkisian. And I'm not saying he gets fired, but the pressure, we're going to have some really uncomfortable conversations, because I do think after the investment that Texas has made, it is very valid to say this is at least getting to the national title game. They didn't spend all the money they did. They didn't add all the pieces they did. They didn't invest what they did to not at minimum make it to the national championship game, right? He's taken them to a couple Final Fours. They missed the playoff last year. They've got to not only get back to the playoff, but they've got to get to that national title game and even potentially win it. I think anything less than that is a failure of a season, and that feels strong to say, but I don't think it's too strong when you look at what Texas has returning.
Where are you on the top half of the league this year, and who's kind of going to separate themselves at some point at the end of the year, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I've got Georgia and Texas at the top. I do. With all that being said about Texas and the Arch Manning preseason stuff, I just still think they're just too talented not to be in Atlanta when the dust settles. I think it's, for me, Georgia's at the very top till I see otherwise. It's a trust factor with Kirby Smart and that organization, and they're actually my national champion pick, Brad. I think they're too good of a program with too good of a head coach and too much talent to be held out for that long. I do think they'll get back there, and I think they'll win it all. After those top two, it gets really, really interesting. For me, third, I had Alabama. I'm much higher on Alabama, I feel like, than most. I think the schedule sets up really well. They just named Keelan Russell QB1, obviously, Brad. I think he's going to fare actually very well in a Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb system. I think he's going to help their running game immensely. Also defensively, they have one of the best in college football. You could argue the secondary is the best. Let's not forget Bama. Brad's got tons of talent. Again, I think the schedule too, I'm not going to say it's a landing pad, but that'd be really discrediting the teams they open with. But, you know, they get ECU out of the gate. They go to Kentucky. They get Florida State. They got South Carolina. They got Mississippi State. There's some really tricky games in there, but Brad, they're more talented than all of them before they take on Georgia in that midseason matchups. I think it sets up well to get Keelan Russell going. I've got them winning double-digit games. I've got the Ole Miss Rebels as my fourth team in the college football playoff. Ironically enough, I've got them 9-3, but I think this is the year, Brad, that a 9-3 team makes the college football playoff, and I do think that team is going to be Ole Miss. The one that I don't have, that I haven't mentioned, Brad, and they're certainly the popular pick for this, but I think Oklahoma could challenge to go to Atlanta. I also had them at 9-3, but I had Ole Miss beating Oklahoma, and that was the differentiator of why Ole Miss got the nod. But I think OU, with arguably the best defense in college football, I'm a believer in John Mateer. I think they could be certainly one that pops and emerges. But I do think, and I know it feels a little boring, but I do think it is going to be the top two in Georgia and Texas that sort of separate. Maybe if you want to say Alabama to an extent separates, quote unquote. But I think right now, as far as tiers, it's Georgia and it's Texas, and there's a little bit of a gap. And then there's a group of like 5 or 6 teams that realistically can make the college football playoff. So it's going to be a really fun season, Brad, from that standpoint alone, that we have so many teams that I think are playoff caliber, and there's only going to be 3 or 4 spots.
Now, my next question was, there are 2 teams that we're not talking a lot about, Alabama, and my other team is Texas A&M. I think they could sneak their way into some conversations because of what they return. Nobody really was talking about A&M, and nobody was really talking about Alabama at SEC Media Days. So those are my 2 teams I really wanted to ask you about. And with Mike Elko at Texas A&M, the way their schedule sets up, I think the Aggies could play spoiler on a couple of teams.
Yeah, Brad, to your point, Alabama and them being slept on is I didn't know that we would live long enough to see a going into a season where Bama was the 5th or 6th talking point. We recall just a couple of years ago with obviously when Nick Saban's still there. I mean, they ran the sport of college football, and even year 1 of Kalen DeBoer was still a massive story. Year 2, how do they respond from year 1? This year, it's just kind of, oh yeah, there's Bama too. Which is just an odd feeling. So I think a lot of folks, I think it actually sets up well for them flying under the radar, being underrated. Like I mentioned, I still think they're one of the most talented teams in college football. And I just think the way the season ended has made folks forget that Alabama still has really, really good football players. Texas A&M, you mentioned, is interesting as well. I think the big question for them obviously is on the offensive line. You got to replace 4 starters. How are they able to do that? But I do think, Brad, the floor under Mike Elko is really, really high. Interestingly enough, I've dropped my game-by-game predictions for every team. I've got A&M getting off to a fast start again. I got them going 7-0, but finishing 9-3. Their tough games come at the back end of the schedule. I know it was a lot of schedule conversation with A&M a season ago. I mean, they had a street paved of gold to the college football playoff with the way the regular season worked out. And a number of those teams they played fired the coaches. And I think they played the 7 of the bottom 8 in the SEC or some number like that. It's a pretty soft opening yet again. But like I mentioned, in the back end, they play the likes of Oklahoma, of Texas, of some others. So it will get difficult. But, Marcel Reed, of course, controls a lot of their fate. Can he cut down on the turnovers? Can he take the next step? Is Isaiah Horton ready to replace a Casey Concepcion? Of course, we know Mario Craver's back, but Casey Concepcion was such a game breaker. And then defensively, you lose Cassius Howell, Azonto Saka, the transfer, ready to step up and emerge and fill in his role. And I think, again, the floor, I think, is really high. They got to also do a better job defensively, Brad, of creating more turnovers. Did not do a good enough job of that last year. But the floor is high there. I would fully expect them to be right in that 8-4, 9-3 mark, knocking on the door of the playoff, and I got them just on the outside looking in.
I had a pretty easy job of putting 3 quadrants of SEC teams. And what I mean by that is kind of quad 1, quad 2, and quad 3. But I'll be honest with you, Chris, there was one team I do not have any of those quads because I simply do not know, and that's the Tennessee Volunteers. I cannot figure them out. They did just name their starting quarterback earlier this morning. So we did see that come out. Where are you at with Josh Heupel and the Volunteers?
Yeah, I think they're going to be, I was going to say much better than expected, but I think the national media, Brad, especially when you look at the coaches poll and the AP poll, I think folks have come around on the idea that this Tennessee team should be pretty good. I think earlier in the offseason, a lot of folks were selling stock. A lot of folks were down on them. Maybe because of the quarterback situation, maybe because of some other things. I have no idea. But I mean, when you take a look at the roster, Brad, Faison Brand has been named the starter, and I think that was the right move. Like when you have 2 guys that are neck and neck, I think you go with the younger, more talented, higher upside guy, and you just, you take your lumps as you go, right? And I think Josh Heupel, being the quarterback guru and the quarterback whisperer that he is, Brad, I don't worry as much about the quarterback position. That's not to say Faison Brandon isn't going to have to step up and emerge and play well and that he's going to be mistake-free all season. But you got Deshaun Bishop back, 1,000-yard rusher. You have one of the best offensive lines back in the SEC. I think Braylon Staley and Mike Matthews on the outside are guys ready to emerge, ready to pop and make big-time impacts. And you got some other dudes at wide receiver as well that can step up. But I think those 2 guys can fill in the shoes of Chris Brazzell nicely, the departed Chris Brazzell. Defense is where I have more questions. You add Jim Knowles, how quickly does the scheme and the system come together? Losing Chaz Coleman in preseason was not good. That was not what you were hoping for. So pass rush is a bit of a question. Emryon Carter back as your leader on defense. Certainly we hope that 2-game suspension he got from the NCAA for his $427 flight that he repaid is not held up. And I think they should be pretty solid in the secondary. But the defense is where the questions are. But here's the good news. You bring in Jim Knowles. They were atrocious defensively last year, Brad. I mean, that was the Achilles heel. I don't think that they're that bad again. And I think Faison Brandon gives them a dynamic on offense. Maybe they were even missing a season ago. So I've got Tennessee. I say all that to say I've got them 8-4. I think with a young quarterback, Brad, I think at times they're going to look like this team absolutely is college football playoff caliber. I think at other times it could get ugly to a degree where I think we could see them be a really big boomer bust team, could beat an Alabama but lose to an Arkansas, which actually is exactly what I have in my game-by-game predictions. Beat an LSU but lose to a South Carolina on the road. So I've got them 8-4, but you're right. They really are difficult to label because there's still a lot of questions. Really young quarterback, but the preseason ranked in the top 20. So which direction do they go will be fascinating.
I think there could be as many as 6 teams finish 9-3. So it'll be fascinating to see. Before we get you out of here today, I know you mentioned Ole Miss as a team that very well could make the college football playoff. What excites you about the team this year from under new full-time head coach Pete Golding, at least a full season as head coach?
Well, and, starting with Pete, I think this is a guy that loves Ole Miss, that buys into Ole Miss, that, is all about it. I think he's presented a unified front, obviously. And I said this before, and we'll see how things work out long term. There's so much more than just the head football coach that determines, success or failure for the long term, right? Even though people want to put it all on him, they get all the glory for the wins and all the criticism for the losses. But I think for the short term, there was absolutely nobody better they could have hired than Pete Golding, right? Because of what happened and the way it happened and the way he was able to galvanize this football team and this fan base, Brad. I was at that playoff game against Tulane. And I mean, yeah, that was 35 or 38 or whatever point blowout in a game that Ole Miss fully expected to win. That place was a zoo, right? And I think it was all because of Pete Golding, the chance of Pete raining down in the vault. That was a really fun day and fun experience. And, you just see what he did so quickly in his tenure there. But when it comes to the football team, I mean, Brad, let's just jump to the obvious, right? It's Trinidad Chambliss and it's Kawan Lacey. I mean, here's the deal. I've seen split opinions in Ole Miss this year. I've seen some that think they're going to go 10-2, 11-1. I've seen some people picking more 7-5, 8-4. If you're on the side of Ole Miss is going to the college football playoff again, it's because you believe in what Trinidad Chambliss and Kawan Lacey are, and especially Trinidad Chambliss. You believe in whatever other questions this football team has. The constant's going to be Trinidad Chambliss is a game breaker. He's a difference maker. He's a magician on the field. He's a wizard. He just makes things happen. You put it beautifully. He makes guys around him better. And, oh, by the way, you got a guy in Kawan Lacey that broke like every record last year that also returns. And there's other good players on offense as well, but they are the focal point, right? I think I also believe in the fact that defensively it's Pete Golding's bread and butter. I like a lot of the portal pieces they brought in. I like a lot of the returners that they have. And I think when you got a guy like Pete Golding, make no mistake, the identity of this football team will still be, at minimum, an electric defense that will complement what they have on the offensive side. So, there's a lot to be excited about, certainly, but it's got to start with the quarterback, running back, Chambliss and Lacey. That's the foundation of this football team. They are the heart and soul of this group, and it's going to get off to a really fun start right out of the gates right here in Nashville against Louisville. And certainly we've all got week 3 circled. I'll be there for that one. Can't wait to get back to Oxford. But, I do think this is a college football playoff team in 2026.
I know you mentioned earlier in the show 9-3. Who are the big win? Who are the big wins and who are the 3 losses that you have right now?
Yeah, so for Ole Miss, as I pull it up here because there's so many different games that
they've got a tough schedule. They're at home to Georgia and LSU, on the road to Oklahoma, Florida, on the road to Texas. So it's a tough schedule.
Yeah, so I do have them winning the season opener, of course, against Louisville. That week 3 game against LSU I've got as a win as well. there are football reasons, Brad, while I'll be picking Ole Miss to win that game, there's also just I don't believe the football gods will allow Lane Kiffin to walk into Oxford and get a win. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I believe in things such as the football guys. It's probably my baseball background coming into play, but I think it's going to be an emotionally supercharged night, and I think Ole Miss will be ready to go and, like you said, wash their hands clean of this whole thing and do it emphatically with a dub. So I've got them winning that game. I got them actually following it up and winning the next week at Florida. I've got them getting off to a 6-0 start, Brad. But like you mentioned, there's a really tough stretch middle of the season. I got them falling to Texas, their first loss. The most unpopular pick is the Auburn game at home. I think Auburn's going to get somebody, and I went with this game in Oxford, so I've got them losing that game and then losing against Georgia at home as well, but then closing out with wins against Oklahoma, Wofford, Mississippi State to finish 9-3, and that be enough to be in the college football playoff, probably as the 11 seed there. So I'll put it to you this way. I'm closer to 10-2 than I am 9-3 when I make these predictions, admittedly, Brad. I try to think a little bit outside the box because it never goes the way that we expect it to go. There's going to be upsets all over the place. So the Auburn one is certainly, if I could change one pick in my predictions, that would be it. But whether it's 9-3 or it's 10-2, the Texas game and the Georgia game, although they just beat Georgia last year, I know in the Sugar Bowl, those are probably the two toughest games on the schedule, no doubt. But I think 10-2 is well within reach. But I went 9-3, but I still have Ole Miss in the playoff.
Real quick, nobody's talking about Missouri at all. But what is interesting is, Caden Lee, the wide receiver, Austin Simmons, the quarterback, they're coming back to Oxford, and nobody's really talking about that story. So I think that's going to be a fun story and a fun game to watch too.
It is. I'm admittedly, Brad, I'm selling stock on Mizzou. I've got them being a fringe bowl team, even having picked them to not make a bowl game this season. And it's one of those things where it's, Mizzou fans, of course, they think I hate them at this point. And I don't. It's just somebody has to lose football games. Like, not everybody can go 8-4, and I don't think with some of the questions that Mizzou has, I don't even know when I'm getting Ahmad Hardy back at this point. I love Jamal Roberts as backup, but he's not Ahmad Hardy. Austin Simmons is a guy that, I'll be very curious how this season goes for him because so many of us were high on him last year going into kickoff, what we thought he could do under Lane Kiffin. And I thought he was going to be the guy, of course, and he suffers some inconsistent play and the injury and emerges Trinidad Chambliss, and the rest is history. So, what he does is going to be fascinating. A lot of new faces on the defensive side. They had 0 returning starters, Brad, on that side of the football. Now, they've got guys that have played, but still no starting experience. And their schedule is much, much more difficult than years past. So I just, again, somebody has to lose football games in this league. And for me, it was Mizzou, interestingly enough, the team that I was selling stock on. So I would fully expect Ole Miss to win that game and win that game, dare I say, comfortably. But you're right. That is a really fun storyline. Austin Simmons and Caden Lee both coming back. And I think Austin Simmons will be welcomed, a warm welcome.
I do too.
It seems like he did everything the right way. And it's just one of those deals where, hey, man, like, I know you want to play. You got to do what's best for you. So, but I think Ole Miss should be able to take care of business. But that will be a really fun storyline going in that game.
He's Chris Phillips, and football's right around the corner, Chris. And I know we're as excited as you are. We'll see you in Nashville for the opening game for Ole Miss and Louisville in the Music City Classic. And we're so excited that college football season is here. Be sure and follow SEC Unfiltered and Chris Phillips on all the social channels. He's got a ton of shows that we talked about at the top of the show and does a great job covering college athletics. Chris, thanks very much for joining us here on the Talk of Champions, and we'll talk to you in Nashville.
Brad, absolutely. Can't wait to see you there.
That was Chris Phillips. This is Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett. He's Brad Logan. The Ole Miss Spirit is where we are all day, every day. OleMissSpirit.com. Sign up today, 75% off. Our thanks to Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Oxford, to Riverland Roofing, B&A Bank, College Corner, Game Day Haircuts, the Hearn Law Firm, all of y'all in the chat.
Let's not forget our good friend Shed Hunger in Modern Woodman.
There he is.
Of America.
See,
Appreciate Shed.
There's so many now. We're just rattling them off. Thank all of y'all who patronize patronize our, what's the word? That do business with, that support.
They patronize them.
Yeah, okay. I was just thinking.
Go by and tell them you heard about it on the Talk of Champions.
Talk of Champions. But thank you for supporting them. Thank you for supporting us. And you can continue to do so at the Ole Miss Spirit. Let's hear from Kyle Christensen, CEO of Thropic, because that game back in May,